So who the fuck are you?
I'm David. Um, I am a father and a husband. I live in Japan. I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm a resident of Japan. I'm a writer and a game designer. I make pen and paper role playing games and some video games here and there. Whole bunch of stuff like that. I also write for a lot of places like Progressive Army.
What do you believe?
First of all, I really don't like labels. I think that there's certainly a place for them in political discourse, but whenever we're actually talking about leftist ideas and stuff, I think that they're oftentimes reductionist and they lead to a lot of assumptions about people that may or may not be true. I think that they are a lazy shorthand in a lot of cases, so you won't often hear me talking about labels about myself.
Plus, who the hell can pronounce anacro whatever?
Anarcho-syndicalist?
Yeah, see?
That's not me. That's not me. No. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that you can describe yourself as a leftist, and I think that most of them don't really do an individual justice. They can certainly do an ideology justice, but I can't really say that I subscribe to one ideology. So basically, I think that we should dismantle all illegitimate authority. I think.
Oh, okay.
Right. I think that we should. I think that people should be allowed to sort of determine their fates, and they should be given the resources to do so. That's a big difference between me and what we would call like American libertarianism. I think that people should have the resources to, in the best way possible, determine their fate, and that's huge. I think that direct democracy is a huge deal. I think it's very important. Direct democracy and horizontal organization, as opposed to hierarchy whenever possible. I think that communities should be empowered as opposed to individuals. I reject the idea of private ownership. I understand that it, of course, has a place in our world currently, and it's, thoroughly spread across Western society. But I also think it's kind of garbage. I think that it's harmful. I believe in universal income. I think that everyone should have, that's one of those resources that you need to live. I think that everyone should be guaranteed income regardless of their specific needs or their specific means. I think that the accumulation of capital is a bad thing. Capital, in this case, being the sort of Marxist exploitation model, where capital is.
I was going to ask you, can you define capital?
Well, it's not a bad question because different people use it different ways. But I think that it's when I talk about capital, I'm usually talking about money that exists to make money. Yeah. Its only purpose is to make more money. And that causes all kinds of problems, and it basically breeds inequity. I think that free speech is a utopian ideal that is sort of unrealistic, and I think that maybe at some point in the future we might be able to talk about free speech as a thing, but right now people on the left and people in marginalized communities don't get free speech. They have to fight for whatever speech they get. So I think that if you are telling me that while I don't get to do and say what I want when I want because of state violence, because of oppression, because of exploitative systems, that I am still obligated to defend bad people who say harmful, violent things that literally cause violence and cause harm, I'm going to get in your face.
You're talking very general. Can you be very specific?
Yeah, sure.
And are you the best example for that?
Not necessarily, but so for example, here's the big one that was in the news lately: Milo Yiannopoulos, the journalist from Breitbart, who is a proud leader of the alt-right or some nonsense. He was doing a speaking tour. Where he was going from college to college, and essentially he would go to these locations and he would try to out trans people. He would try to list undocumented students and try to essentially ruin their lives, get them harassed and get them bullied, and that's awful. That's terrible. That's hate speech. And a lot of people protested, and a lot of people got very legitimately upset about this until the point where he was pulled from a few universities. The protesters won. They essentially stopped his hate speech. A lot of people say, okay, well, free speech. He's got to, you've got to defend speech that you don't like. I don't like what you say, but I'll defend to you the death your right to say it.
Not actually Voltaire.
It's not actually Voltaire. That phrase to me speaks with a certain amount of privilege, because that is coming from a person who is not endangered by that speech. Now, there are a lot of people in the world who don't just get to say whatever they want.
Like your...
Well, okay, great example. Historical example in America, Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was doing a lot of great organizing and speaking work, and at a very young age, because he was saying things that the United States government did not want, they killed him.
More information about him in the doodly-doo.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about Fred Hampton a lot in this series, because he's a great topic.
But maybe we'll put a primer in the comments.
Yeah. So he was not afforded free speech. So if you've told me that I need to stand up for Milo Yiannopoulos, or Milo Yiannopoulos, I think is his name, but you haven't gone to bat for people like Fred Hampton, that's a problem. You're not actually talking about free speech. You're talking about free white supremacy. And that's not okay. Simple things: healthcare, education, housing. I think that they're fundamental human rights. I am not really up for entertaining opposition to that. I don't think that opposition to that is okay. I believe in eradicating state violence. So this means dismantling police systems. I think that communities should be able to police themselves. There are a lot of wonderful methods out there that have been proven very effective in the absence of policing, or to support community policing. I think that the death penalty is completely unacceptable. I think that interventionist military is unacceptable. I think that colonialism and imperialism are just completely off the table. They are not things that we should be exercising. Prison. I think that communities should have certain right to minor extent of imprisonment as a method of self-defense. If there are immediate threats, they might have to do something like that. But I don't think that formal state prisons are a thing that should be. And most definitely, like the very basic here is the for-profit prisons are unacceptable. This is a place where I can see a little bit of compromise. I understand that a lot of people think that prisons are okay, but for-profit prisons are not. For-profit prisons are definitely not. And we have to start there before we can go anywhere else. So
9 minutes.
And lastly, I believe in full embrace of intersectionality. That means complete rejection of bigotry on pretty much all diversity grounds: sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, classism. These are all terrible things, and we need to be better than that. And if we're not better than that, then basically our leftism falls apart. So that's me. That's sort of what I believe. That's what I stand for. And that's what you can probably expect to hear a lot of here. And